CKER.
Wonderful. All right. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Taecker. I'm going to go ahead and walk through a series of questions from the board related to your parcel, and then we will turn you over to the parties. Okay?
Quick question.
Yes.
I left my seat. I left my water back in my seat. So
we'll get you one.
If you could grab me a water, that would be great.
Somebody. Chuck is on it. So thank you. Okay.
Just want to make sure that I have clear voice.
You're fine. The microphone in front of you, you can move that around, put that wherever you'd like, just as long as you make sure you're speaking into it. If the parties ask you questions, feel free to move the microphone around anywhere you'd like. Okay? Just need to make sure that our court reporter captures everything for the record.
Question.
Yes.
While I am looking at you, I'm assuming she can hear me.
Yep.
And I'm looking this direction, I'm assuming you can hear me. So therefore, I do not need to move it, correct?
Whatever makes you comfortable.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name and provide your address for the record.
John, my full name?
Please. Well, first and last.
Thank you. John Taecker, T as in Tom, A, E as in Edward, C, K, E, R. My address is 981 Dry Creek Road, Campbell, California, 95008.
Okay, and we've got 10 parcels, I believe. Is that number correct?
So, I'm presuming that they are all correct. I checked with I'm trusting that IUB staff, I had asked them all the parcels that impact my family are on there, and they assure me that they are, so that there are now other parcels lingering out that is within Summit Carbon Solutions petition.
Okay. So as we're walking through the parcels, we label them H-WR-049 would be the first one. If you refer to them as a different name, that's fine. We just want to make sure that when we're on the record, because we've got so many parcels, that we have them all straight. Okay?
So for that point is that, yeah, I have not had the time or opportunity to, in the short period of time between having received your identification of parcels versus how I think of them.
Yeah.
Because of a number of reasons. Therefore, yes, I've been informed it's 49, 57, 58, 64, 65, 69, 72, 122, 123, and 154. In my family, we refer to them as the names of, we have 3 farms that we have names for them, and I do not have the parcel numbers specifically memorized.
Yep. We'll work through that. We'll get that straight.
Thank you.
It won't be hard. Okay. Can you describe the current use of your property and any plans you may have for different use in the future? And if you need a KMZ file pulled up, we can.
I'm sorry?
If you need a file, if you want to see a map of it, we can pull that up too.
The overall map, or?
Are they all fairly contiguous? Yeah, let's pull it up. No, there you go. So go ahead and describe current use and any future plans. If you want to go ahead and you should have a pointer over there somewhere. Just make sure you're using descriptive words. It's hard to come back into the record and find here and there, but if you say the lowermost property in the southwest corner, and so we'll work through that. Bottom line is just describe the current use and future use in your words, and we'll make sure the record has what it needs.
So first is I'm going to point out that there are 3 farms. There's the one this is the homestead, and the farmstead, and there is roughly that farm. The second is there's a farm here where the farm homestead is there. And that farm effectively is around that.
Okay, so so the middle parcel of land in that corner section between at the junction of those two.
Well, and it goes across. It's on both sides of the road.
Okay, that farmstead is.
So
hold on, Mr. Taecker.
I'm sorry.
We just got to make sure we have it described properly. So
right.
You're talking about the middle, the farmstead that abuts the northwest corner of one of the parcels, and then directly just to the left of it, or I should say west of it on the gravel road, is also a homestead. Correct?
Much easier for me to take a look at my map to see exactly where I'm talking here.
Sure.
So the first one that I told you of, which goes down here and across roughly there, that farm we refer to as the home farm, and it's referred to in several different ways, but as I speak, I may be reverting back to just referring to that as the home farm.
Perfect. Okay, so let's identify those parcels real quick. The home farm is those bottom 3 parcels down here.
It's this.
Okay. So does it catch the
It catches the beginning of the lower part of the proposed pipeline as it comes in at the bottom.
Okay. And so that gravel road that runs south, that the pipeline proposed route where it crosses,
that where the mouse is down here, that's not mine.
Okay, yeah, no, north of that.
Yeah. So
staff north and
so this is the. May I ask a question? Is this
John,
is this a
pipeline?
pipeline?
Hold on, I just have to get the parcel, so we'll get you through this. It'll be just fine. Okay, so staff, those 2 little slivers on the east side. North, no, up, no. Okay, can you identify? Yep, those little slivers. Would you call that the home piece? The little slivers west of the road, right there, that.
Question, so we're talking the same way. Is the red the red blocks? Those are the parcels in question, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So if you could move the map, move it so I can see further down, please. Thank you. Okay. So from the pipeline that enters there and to there, these parcels, that's part of the home farm.
Perfect. Can you identify those parcels, please? So that is WR049, WR064, WR065. There we go. WR702. That is the home farm.
Correction, sir, isn't that 072, not 702?
It is. Thank you. 072. Perfect. All right.
Okay. So then, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to. So in regards to what are these right here, these 2 blocks here, there's the railroad right through here. There's the road. There's the road. These parts right here, those would be, we refer to that as the Flummerfelt Farm.
Flummerfelt.
F-L-U-M-E-R-F-E-L-T.
Thank you. Those parcels. WR 154. WR 057. WR 122. Okay.
May I ask, can we go back to I want to see, I noticed that there are designations. When you had your mouse over, and then I saw that there was identifying who the owner is. Interesting. And then if you could show me down below in the other parcels, thank you. Extremely interesting. So
let's finish identifying those top three.
Okay,
please. Should be
we need to come back to that because you have identified incorrectly the landowner names. In all the cases that I'm seeing so far. Anyway, so on the other side, this and this, those we would. And I'm sorry, sir. Could I know which ones that you identified of your numbers associated with that previous block?
Those 3 blocks right there.
Yes. Yeah. What are those?
One is WR 154.
Thank you.
WR 057 and WR 122.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then what is these blocks here? Actually, the farm effectively goes down like this. That is, we refer to as the Olson Farm.
Olson. Thank you. O-N-E-N.
O-L-S-O-N.
Thank you. And those parcels.
And, yes, please.
WR 123. WR 058. And WR 069. Okay, so we're effectively, from your perspective, talking about 3 farms.
That is how my family views it, yes.
That'll be easier. Okay, go ahead and describe the current use of your property and any plans you may have for a different use in the future.
So, as has been done since 1880 in my family, we farm this area. Every single area you have shown is used for growing beans and corn, except for there is an area where bounded effectively. Yeah, thank you. A little bit closer so I can see it a little better. Thank you. There we go. Is that bounded in this area? That's pasture land, and that's simply because it's a creek bed. Okay, you will see that there is a creek that's going through all the way down
through the Olson Farm.
Through the Olson Farm, through that area.
Starting in the northwest corner, there's a creek that runs through the Olson Farm and then down. It looks like it's referred to as ditch number 4 on the map. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. We just
no worries.
Put everything into those types of words. So go ahead.
So, of course, the pasture, we have about 30 head of cattle. There's no reason in our mind to do anything different than what has been done by the 4 generations before me, and I have no plans of doing anything different for the future.
Can you provide a general description of the properties, including buildings, structures, drainage, tile.
This is going to take a while.
That's all right.
Okay, so as I said, there are 3 farms. So let's go back first of all to the Olson farm. Excuse me, to the Thompson farm. It's easier for me from left to right. So for this area,
and the Thompson farm's also the home farm.
Excuse me, yeah, it was an old the farmers that were there after my grandfather stopped due to his health is that the original family that was on there. So that's why we name them the way we do.
I know how that goes. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you could move up please to the north. There you go. So right here, what you see are the buildings that are associated with this farm, the Thompson farm. Excuse me, I did it again. Home farm. I had just seen.
It's okay.
I had just seen them. So anyway,
as long as we know on the record, Thompson farm and home farm are generally interchangeable, we're good to go.
That's unfortunately it's something that's ingrained in me since I was a kid. Well, as long as I can remember. So the buildings are over here, and there's you need a description of all the buildings?
No, we just need a general description of the properties that the proposed pipeline would go through. So that Thompson Olson farm.
No, the Thompson.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
the
Thompson.
Home,
Thompson.
I confused you already. So the home farm. I'll try to be good about this. The home farm. That's the homestead.
Yep. Okay.
What further do you, and we're just talking about the buildings, then we'll come back to the tile.
We're really just talking, at the end of the day, for the purposes of the hearing, the red portions.
Right.
So if there's something relevant on the buildings, then would be great to know. But specifically, the red shaded section, is there tile present?
Oh, there is tiling. Yes.
Okay.
So, that's why I have a map to remind me of all of the. And this tiling map, by the way, I had provided to Summit Carbon Solutions over a year ago, almost a year ago, and so they have copy of this map that I hold in my hand.
Okay.
So it's a lot more detailed, and I can describe, but it would take quite a bit for you to understand that this basically. I have tiling that's going through here that this will cross over. There's tiling that comes over here and it goes through that. There is, and I don't have a copy of the original, and so I'm having to. There's some Scotch tape that is holding this thing together. There's tiling that is going through right here. So there's at least from where I'm looking on your map and I'm looking on my map, is that at least 1, 2, 3, at least 3, if not, there's 5 intersections with tiling.
And those tiles generally run east to west?
Generally, they're running north to south.
Okay.
And so think of it as that it's that, it's that, it's that.
Tracking.
And again, from our purposes for this discussion, I can assure you that that's going through the tiling. I can't get it accurately for you exactly on your map from this distance, of course. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so I think precisely.
You're all right. You're doing great. So the depth of that tile?
So it varies. There's 4 feet, there's 5 feet. I'd have to look at all the notes that are through because it's all it varies depending on where we are in the topography.
Okay. Are there any above ground facilities in that red shaded section?
Well, I don't think fencing is considered facilities, but there's fencing that, of course, borders the farm. But as far as any structure or anything of that nature, no.
Before we move on, would you like to move to admit the map into the record? We can have staff make copies of the map.
It's going to be faint, but if that helps you to understand, I would be more than happy to.
Okay.
But, I mean, to realize that this is a facsimile of a facsimile of a facsimile.
Right. We'll go ahead and Chuck make copies, see how it turns out. All right.
You're going to have to give me time to get my map back.
Well, we're waiting on Chuck to bring that back. Let's.
I can tell you about the buildings on the others if you wish. I can do that.
Let's do that.
Okay. So please move up the map so I can see there. So what there, for this farm, there is where the farmstead is. There's where all the buildings are, all the structures that are associated with the Flummerfelt farm.
And you're talking about the structures on the north, that abut the northwest corner.
Correct.
Okay.
On the corner of Calhoun and 255th, excuse me.
Perfect. Okay. And the structures, the distance of those structures from the pipeline?
So I haven't taken time to figure out what's the distance between this farmhouse here to here. I have not determined that.
Do you want to take a guess before we measure it?
I would not even have a clue.
Okay. (1,723 feet). And is there someone living in the farmhouse there?
Yes, there have always been people living in all of these houses.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Is there livestock in the other buildings?
So there's livestock here, and the livestock for this farm is predominantly in this area. Sometimes can be down the lane and over here.
Okay, so the large barn in the southwest corner, and then the livestock would be throughout.
And the livestock is cattle.
Cattle. Thank you. Okay, so back to the shaded area. No structures on the shaded area?
No.
Okay. In either of the parcels, or any of the parcels, are there any easements or other infrastructure like natural gas lines, water lines, telecommunication lines?
To my knowledge, there are no easements at this time through any portions.
Okay.
So far, we have been able to avoid it.
And other than the Olson farm in the northeast, are there any bodies of water, streams, ponds, otherwise?
So the body of, other than the creek, roll down a little bit here. No, I'm sorry, I'm directing wrong. Go up north and over to the west, please. So what you'll see, there's the Boone River that borders on the edge of our property.
Okay. For the red shaded areas, the only standing body of water is the creek. I'm sure Mr. Taylor will help us get the exact definition of stream versus creek later. But other than that, no bodies of water.
As far as like a pond or a lake, no.
Perfect.
In fact, to that point, that is why we did all the tiling, so that we didn't have standing water.
And timber or forest?
The woods that are behind along the edge of that on the Boone River you see on the map. You see in the aerial photo.
Okay. Okay. But again, on the red shaded section, no timber or forest.
Not on those specific parcels, no.
Okay. Now we're going to circle back to the tile once we get that distributed.
But can we finish the buildings? Since we're on a roll with the buildings?
Sure.
So on the Olson farm, the buildings are up here.
In the very northwest corner of the Olson farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how far are those from the pipe?
And there's a farmhouse. Well, judging from how your handy-dandy methodology there, it looks like it'd probably be a similar distance than it was for the Flummerfeld.
We'll go ahead and measure it. 3,000. Oh, slightly closer down there. 2,931 feet. Okay. And right next to the stream there, in the non-red shaded area, there appears to be some concrete or rock.
What you're picking up by the photo is that over time we take used concrete to shore up so that we don't have erosion issues. Because what this map does not capture for you is that is a fairly deep ravine.
That's the next question. Can you describe features of all three of these properties that aren't necessarily captured on this map? And so the
by two-dimensional?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
So the couple of things that this map doesn't quite capture, first of all, is that where there's this transition across, there's a road here, but also through here from this point down into town, that's the railroad.
Okay.
And at least I couldn't see this morning because of the fog, but what I saw yesterday was that there was quite a few railroad cars along there.
Okay.
There's, as far as topography, it's relatively easy rolling. There's, as you have in most areas, it's relatively in that regards. The biggest change of topography is moving the map up. Is this complete creek, as it identified it down there as the ditch, but that is. I'm trying to think. Picture in my mind. I did not do any specific measurement, but it would be a guess on my part as to how deep it is. But it is. It's not like a shallow creek. We're talking like 40, 50 feet. That it could be a difference of 40 or 50 feet is. Probably too much, but it's not like 4 or 5 feet down. It is substantially a deep ravine.
So you mean from the bottom of the stream bed to the top of the?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And I assume then, based on the Boone River being north and west, these properties generally slope from where the proposed pipeline is towards the Boone River in the northwest.
That would be nice if it did. So we are part of a drainage district that a fair amount of the drainage from these farms goes the opposite direction. And I know it can be surprising on that. It was surprising to me when I learned this. But what it has to do with is that the Boone River, if you were to really come out. You saw the entire township of Eagle Grove, which is to the, there you go, there's Eagle Grove. And the Boone River effectively circles around and comes down around here. And so our drainage district comes down through town and comes and captures it at the lower end. Okay. So what is, a lot of this is going to be impacting the drainage district. That's why the tiling is the way it's done. That's part of the reason, excuse me.
Okay.
To my understanding. And so here's, anyway, so I'm sorry.
So we've got the map distributed now.
Now,
you want to go ahead and describe it?
Certainly. So if you'll notice on, and for those who are looking at the map, you'll find that what is on the exhibit, you'll see that the red outline is to indicate that's the home farm. What's bounded by the green is the Flummerfelt farm. And if you could move up so I can see, thank you. And it unfortunately gets clipped in this photocopy, is that the Olson farmstead is just a little off the map, just above there. It's just because, again, this was a facsimile of a facsimile. So let's go down a little bit so I can point out what I was saying about. So the proposed pipeline goes through right through here, and as you can see, the lines, the red lines that are on the map, and unfortunately this Scotch tape kind of screws up the ability to see. If you would see the original, you would see where the red lines showing the tiling connections in that area. Okay. Now, when you go up further, is that going from memory of what was shown on the proposed pipeline, it goes through here, and you'll see several lines, several spur lines in here and across here. So there's multiple places where the pipeline would cross those.
Okay, so those multiple spurs are on the Flummerfelt farm, and they're really centrally located south and west of the railroad, but east of that gravel road.
Correct.
Okay.
And what you have also is you have significant over here, but that is that is draining in another direction. So then you have, please go down. So the pipeline, the proposed pipeline comes through here and goes smack through a field, roughly about 50 acres that's going through, that is all pattern tile. And if you also notice that there's pattern tile here as well, so there's multiple lines that would be going through that. It would be going through the pasture. Here's the creek, the pasture, the creek area, and then it would be going through that.
And what's the age of most of this tile, generally speaking?
It's anywhere from I think it's about anywhere from about 15, 20 years to 30, 40, 50 years. When I was in college, my father asked me, "What do you plan to do? And are you going to keep the farms or not?" And my response was, "Well, of course I'm going to. Why wouldn't I?" And he says, "Good. I just want to know because I'm going to invest heavily in tiling." So what ended up is my dad, and this is his maps with the assistance of course, those who are doing the tiling. He had them draw it out, saying, "Tell me where it all is." And So this is over the course of about 40 years of worth of work.
Excellent. Thank you.
And of course, that was because we had drainage issues in various places. We now have, we're very proud to say that there is not a single jot where we can think of where we should do any further improvement on the land. Now, I'll also say this in the regards to this point is that when I met with Summit Carbon Solutions staff in last fall, is that, again, like I said, I provided this map. I showed them the significant impact on the tiling, and that was one of our, obviously it's one of several, but one of our major concerns in regards to this proposed pipeline and the impact that would be on us. And their response was, okay, we'll figure out another path. We are currently, we have been in negotiations on looking at another pathway, an alternative route.
That's one of our questions. So can you?
Sorry, am I leading the
You're doing fine.
The prosecution? Is that it?
No, you're doing fine.
Rather than the prosecution leading the witness?
No, you're doing fine. Do you recommend an alternative route for the proposed line? And if so, can you describe the route and its advantages or disadvantages?
Well, at the risk of sounding facetious, I would have the route I would propose would be completely off my land, but we realize that there is the political climate the way it is, the political forces at work, and so forth, that one doesn't always get what one wants. But
let's pull the KMZ back up, please. There we go.
So I don't have with me the, unfortunately, I don't have with me the other proposed route but it was doing, I think that if memory serves me correctly, in the discussions, it was relatively, if I recall correctly, please do not hold me to this, but there was not much change in here. It was far more of routing what was going through the Flowerfelt farm and going through the Olson farm to do some jogging to get around some of the tiling to minimize the, it's as you can see from the tiling map, there's no way you're not going to hit tiling. But the question is, how do you minimize or mitigate? So we were trying to get around that. We were also trying to look to see how we could avoid, especially that pattern tiling up here. Again, like I had said before, just a little while ago, is that even as to up until even yesterday, that I know that Summit Carbon Solutions is working on trying to propose an alternative route. We are open to, we've been working in good faith with them. We are willing to discuss with them what, frankly, what my hope out of this whole thing right here today is I'm hoping that that the board will either table or at the least or dismiss the eminent domain proceedings of any eminent domain proceedings on my family as we work with try to work with Summit Carbon Solutions. We've had a lot of discussions. We've had a lot of back and forth, which is always what happens. In my professional career, I do testifying for, and this one's the hardest testifying I've ever done in my life because I do it all the time for work, but that doesn't have the emotions that obviously comes with this one for me. This is too personal. But the thing is that as a friend of mine a colleague of mine would say, is that consensus is when nobody's happy, but everybody can figure out a way to live with it, and that's what we're trying to get to. And I think that we're very close. I'm looking forward to having conversations afterwards continue with Summit Carbon Solutions to see if we can get to that point.
So can you describe any specific concerns you may have and recommendations you have for the board to address the concerns as it relates to the proposed pipeline on your property, and any easements or requirements in terms of mitigation and replacement of topsoil, etc.?
So the way that the original easement proposals were crafted, the way that the statutes are written, and all are have been of a lot of angst, anguish, disconcerting to us because we don't view, and when I say we, I'm speaking on behalf of my family. There, as I noted before, I'll come back to it too. As I said, I noted before is that I speak on behalf of my family. I am the farm manager. But the owners are my mother, my sister, and myself, and we own different parts. And but we also are working within two trusts as well. So it's, while everything is being viewed, everybody seems to be, what we see is that there is this, oh, well, it's just simple and we're going to just do this. It's not, it may be simple, but it's not easy. It's very complicated. It's very complicated in regarding the ownership. It's very complicated in regards to what protections, and that's, and you hear me say that, you've already heard from, I'm sure over the last month you were probably tired of hearing or weary. I would say this. I shouldn't say tired, but you're probably weary from hearing a number of repeating things of issues, of concerns regarding safety, regarding safety protection. What's protection for damage of property, of tiling, let's see, I had it all written down so I could remember it, but sorry for the moment here. Impact on the farming operations and so forth. We, as I had indicated before, we have over the last 4 weeks have been in conversation, and we had a conversation at the very beginning, but we have a conversation where we believe that we have minimized as much as we can, as much as we feel that we can. If we have one or two outstanding things that we think that we're just this close. But as far as our concerns are, that I'd say that where I would like from the Iowa Utility Board is one thing is of great concern is that I would hope that you do not issue a permit or allow for construction until they have the entire line and ready to go. Because I hate to say it, I don't want to see a situation where they start construction on a part, oh, we got this part, and we're going to start construction here, and then realize that, oh, we can't complete the whole thing, and then they abandon it. That's a worry. It's a concern. And I think it's a legitimate concern. But on one hand, I don't, I don't like this. I don't want this. But I realize that like I said, the political climate is such, the political forces are such, and there's a terrific economic incentive. And I think that I'm sorry, I may have repeated myself several times because I had tried to put in order my thoughts, but then we started into the middle and I deviated from it. So I apologize for it, and I apologize for. Well, no, I don't. I should not apologize for this aspect. Is that this is, as I had indicated, it's an emotional thing because these are century farms. My great grandfather, George James, who was if you read his obituary, it is amazing that there was that the entire town turned out for his funeral, and so it's something that we don't take for granted. My family looks at it as we have responsibilities. I have responsibilities for my family's interests. I have responsibilities for our farming partners. And we have two farming partners that we work with on this and their families. There's grandkids running around. I just spent a fun weekend with their grandkids and them. And they're like family. They've been on, in fact, Rod Olson, who's Rod and I, we remember playing as kids on the farm when I would come out to visit my grandparents. And then last of all is that we view the land as something that we are stewards of the land, and we do the best we can and hope for doing the best possible. So sorry that got into passionate part, but it's extremely important to us, and that's why that's why I'm here from California. I did not want to do this virtually. This is too much of a concern to us. What I would one of the other things, and this is just, if I may, on the side, I've got two things that have annoyed me regarding this more than anything else. One is notifications. Is that I think that it's egregious that in this day and age when we have, and this is coming from, I'm sorry, this is from a sensibilities from a Californian. I'm an Iowan, but I'm also a Californian. And in California, we have listservs. We have means that it's very easy to identify who are the people that need to be notified. And when you have it in your rules, in your state statutes and everything, that, we'll put a notice in the newspaper in the county. You think I'm getting the newspaper from Eagle Grove? And I'm also looking at where I live and all that. And you only have to post it once. So if I miss one edition of the newspaper, I've missed the notification for the hearings. So I would encourage you to consider utilizing what is already available. I will gladly sign up to get noticed. I did not know until the beginning, when I got the notices, started getting all the notices for this eminent domain, that it was then and only then that I understood, that I was informed, that it was clear to me, you have an EFS or whatever you call it. Prior to that, I looked back through my paperwork. I looked through back with what I received. Notification is very questionable in my mind. The second thing that I will note is that from the very beginning, the addressing is all over the map. In other words, so for these 10 parcels, I received from where is it? I received these. I'm sorry to show it, but I'll describe it as I'm holding up these from Frederickson law firm that there was packets, right? So if I was to if I bought them and I decided not to because I did not want to waste my space and luggage, but it's that high of documents that I have. The number of these, your notices, the official request, it stands that high for 10 parcels. I am the farm manager. I am the co-trustee, and most of these are not addressed to the right person, either because I had some that were addressed to, and this isn't before. I had some that were addressed to supposedly to my grandmother, but it was Clara Taecker. There's never been a Clara Taecker. So and that's why I was brought up the concern before, sir. When if you could show me the land, pick one. So it says the landowner's name is my father, and it's actually my mother that has the title to the land, not my dad. If you go down below, and if you see it, it says that it's owned by the Roy Taecker family and the Taecker Family Trust. That's not correct. It's the Clara H. Brown Trust, and I am a partial owner, and my mom is a partial owner. And I'd have to look at the specific parcel to see if it's got my name on it or if it's got my mom's name on it. So that's what I was referring to earlier, is that it's going to take time. We're willing to sit down to work that out, to get it clear as to actually who is the owner and who actually is going to be signing for it. Because as you well know, is that if we don't get this right now, if we don't get this correct at this point, there's going to be some wonderful opportunities for lawyers in the future, and a lot of needless time wasted because if we didn't get it right the first time. So I'm sorry for you asked me the question as to what my concerns are, and so are those concerns able to be mitigated? Certainly. But all I ask is that that the board allow for that to be worked out between the two interested parties. The interested party is wanting to put the pipeline through, and the interested party of the people that actually own the land. Hopefully that was clear. I'm sorry my deviations on that. I'm sure that there will be some, hopefully that will not confuse people as to exactly what my point is.
Oh, I think you did great. When we talked about being repetitious and on point, we weren't really talking to the non-represented landowners. We were really talking to the attorneys in the room. So you did great. We appreciate you coming and providing clarification. I don't have any further questions, so we're going to turn you over to the parties now. The parties will ask you questions about your parcel. When they're done, Board Member Burns may have some questions, and then we'll send you on your way. So
thank you.
It looks like Mr. Taylor is up first.
Wow, I've never seen so many lawyers all lined up. This would be fun.
The old joke is if you put the lawyers in a bus and put them on the clip. Good start, yes.
Actually, sir, it's, if I may point out, is that there's only 3 lawyer jokes. The rest of them are true stories. Sorry, I can do that because my father-in-law is a lawyer and he always finishes my lawyer jokes.
I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club.
Thank you.
And you mentioned that you've been negotiating with some of the land agents. Do you feel like you have no choice but to do that?
That's a very good question. No, I don't feel I have a choice. From the very beginning, I feel that words matter, and what the meaning of words. It doesn't feel to me like voluntary easement. But then on the flip side is that, do I want eminent domain? And the thing is that I'd much rather have do the discussion on an easement than I would to have a discussion on an eminent domain. And as I think I said several times before, is that I think that ultimately the political forces are such and the economic incentives are such. So the best I can do, I'm a small family business. I'm a full-time employee for my company of 39 years. I'm hoping to retire next year, so then if I was retired, maybe I'd have more time for this, for all this. My father has been declining in health for the last year and plus, and I started to do it before I came out here, and I will have to finish it when I get home to put him in memory care. Separating my parents after 68 years of marriage. It's tough. So I don't. This is something that takes away from all that. So I'm sorry to put that emotion. No, I'm not sorry. Why am I say that? Is that I'm not apologizing for it. It's just the reality. So in regards to your my long-winded answer or response to your question is that do I see this as something? I feel it's something I have to do. I don't have really much other choice. It's trying to figure out how to best minimize and mitigate for the three things: my family's interest, our farming partners and their families' interests, and for the land as best I can.
And so to be clear, would you rather not have the pipeline on your property at all?
That's what I said. I think I recall saying, I think, that if I was to have a reroute of this, it would be off my land. I would not want it. But what choice do I have at this point? I missed, like I said before, I was annoyed with the fact of the notifications. I may have missed certain hearings, and it's just because of distractions of life.
The map shows the city of Eagle Grove fairly close to the pipeline. Do you know if the city of Eagle Grove has expressed any concerns about the pipeline or taken any action regarding the pipeline?
Objection, Your Honor.
State your objection.
I think the chair made clear that, particularly to the attorneys, that the purpose of this is for the witness to talk about his properties. The city of Eagle Grove is certainly capable of expressing its own interests if it so chooses.
Mr. Taylor, can you tell us how this is related to his property?
Well, he mentioned the city of Eagle Grove, and I was just trying to clarify whether the city had made any actions or not.
Okay, maybe you could clarify your question.
I'll move on. I think you mentioned you were concerned about the safety issue. Would Eagle Grove be the closest place for emergency response?
No. So the closest would be Clarion, and then after Clarion, then it's Mason City, and then after that, it's Ames or Des Moines. And then the question, of course, would be is as to what level of what level of care or knowledge that there would be. Because obviously, is that the more you get towards the larger cities, you're going to have more specialists than you would normally in a small community.
You mentioned the creek. That would be on the Olson property on the north end. Is that right?
Correct. You see the green belt that that's going up here and coming down through here.
And you said that was a very deep creek?
Yes.
So,
As far as how deep it is, I have not gone out to measure it. I have, I can picture it in my mind. If there, and I don't believe this is appropriate, or it may be appropriate, but I'm looking to you, sirs, is that if you wanted to get a far more accurate as to the depth of it, I didn't even think about this. I should have prepared for that. Is that my partner, Rod Olson, who lives on that and has lived there all his life. Rod could tell you in a heartbeat how, probably down to maybe a centimeter or two off. But I'm looking at him right now. He's nodding his head, yeah. But Rod could tell you exactly what the depths are of that ravine.
the reason I ask is that, do you know how Summit proposes to cross that creek with the pipeline?
So I'm not clear as to exactly whether they are going to bore underneath or whether it's going to be above ground. I have no idea on exactly how they intend that. That's not been clear to me. What I will say that just because of that creek and the depth of the ravine concerns me, regardless of whether it's above ground or not. From the standpoint that if you look at what CO2 is heavier than air. CO2 is going to gravitate towards ditches and valleys, and that it's going to, which would also include ravines, and that would be a high concentration. That's where you would have concerns, safety concerns. And from that standpoint, I would also say that that in regards to the safety protocol that you were asking, is that by profession I'm a safety engineer. I am a registered public safety engineer, registered professional safety engineer in the state of California, and just trying to digest all of the documentation that's out there from 49 CFR 195 to looking at, there's also been a document, a guidelines that has been just published just this last month, August 2023, by the National Association of State Fire Marshals and the American Petroleum Institute and the Liquid Pipeline Association, which actually Summit Carbon Solutions is a member of. That I'm hoping that they will be, because they are a member of that association, that they will be in following all those guidelines that were in that document published just this last month. I just received a copy of that document last week from a friend of mine, another safety consultant, safety engineer, who actually represents NASFM. So I still haven't read through all of it. I've scanned through it, and as long as I'm hoping that they will be at least following those guidelines, even though they're not statutory.
Sorry, can you clarify NASFM?
I'm sorry, NASFM. I had said it earlier, the sentence before. NASFM is the National Association of State Fire Marshals. They are obviously consist of 50 members. Actually, more than 50 members, but they represent all of the state fire marshals. In fact, one of the things on my to-do list was I wanted, from my standpoint of looking at safety issues, I wanted to. I have on my list to actually ask the Iowa State Fire Marshal as to what plans does he have, and of making sure that the volunteer fire departments are locally are prepared and ready for this. I realize that's devil in the details, and but like I said, this is one of those things where it's dangerous to ask an engineer a question because you're going to get way more than you asked for.
You described the tiling on your property. Do you have concerns about of that tile if the pipeline is constructed?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand the question correctly. So you're asking me do I have concerns about how the pipeline will impact the tiling?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry I wasn't clear.
No, I'm just just forming in my mind how to respond. So certainly, where my concerns would be, excuse me. Where my concerns would be are that one is that if you're crossing a tile, that are you above, are you below? If you're I'm concerned about, is there? I don't know what level is the frost line. I don't know what if there's maybe over time frost heave or anything like that might move pipes around. That might move their pipe around in relationship to the tiling. I don't know if it's going to impinge on it or not. I have to trust the people that are the experts that do the tiling. One of the things that we have asked specifically for in our negotiations is that we work out how we have a third-party inspection of the tiling to make sure that we don't have trapping issues, how to deal with any repair because I'm sure that Summit Carbon Solutions is they're not in the interest of they're going to do everything they can within their powers. I'm hoping of addressing any potential damage and mitigate that because it's not in their best interest at all. On the flip side is that of course it's humans involved. People will act like people. So the thing is that we'll just do our best and it's something we'll mitigate through. But it's with anything that's man-made, there's always going to be something that could possibly happen. Will those could be? I've been in meetings numerous times where people will say, I remember being in a room with years and years ago with a bunch of inspectors, and they were debating this and debating that, and they were saying, well, what if this, what if that, what if this? Finally, one of the prominent manufacturers got up and said, you guys are becoming more expectors than inspectors. And so it's like, how do you deal with that?
Is any of your property in CRP or some similar program?
At this time, no. I've given some thought regarding, as you see, the wooded area along the river. But then sometimes when you go into a certain program, other things come along for the ride that you may not want to have. As I've noted earlier, that this is probably one of the worst investments when you think about it from the standpoint is that there's so much sentimentality, there's so much emotion from a family history. But we do our best to, I don't know if I need to have, dare I say, government telling me how to maintain the naturalness of that woods.
Do you believe that the construction of the pipeline would impact your crops?
Well, first of all, it depends on the time of year that they would be constructing. It's certainly, if it's in the middle of the growing season, there's no way that you can't. But then again, that's part of the that's part of that as short-term mitigation, compensation, if you will, for I lost that crop or I lost that part of the crop. Then yeah, there's that's already built into this. Over the long run, there's always can be a potential. Any pipeline, any adjustment to the land could affect, certainly, but there's how do you mitigate? It's all about, I think, about how you mitigate. And that's why I'm far more interested in having those conversations and having the understanding that they're the ones who will benefit from it, from having the pipeline, and so therefore, if there's anything that is a detriment to me, because they're the ones benefiting, then they need to take care of that, and that's where we've gone in the negotiations.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Jorde?
Sir, did I hear you say that your family first purchased parts of this land in 1880? Was that what you said? Or one of the farms?
Don't hold me to the exact date, but it's back in that time frame. Actually, my great-grandfather had about 2,000 acres. It was not I'm sorry, I have to think about this. I think it's about 900 acres or so that's in this area, because we have another farm that's part of the family that's on the opposite end. Actually, it's down towards Woolstock. But as far as, and that's just simply because my great-great-grandfather had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. I always have to think about it. Anyway, I don't have the family tree in front of me.
Now, Eagle Grove, obviously shown here on the aerial, the KMZ we're looking at. I assume you have a long-term view as a steward of this property. What do you think about the development, future development of Eagle Grove, understanding that you are touching and in fact have a sliver of property in the city limits already?
Objection.
State your objection.
It's the same as with Mr. Taylor. Eagle Grove's development future is not unique or specific to this landowner's land. Again, Eagle Grove can certainly express its own interests if it so chooses.
Mr. Jorde?
Yeah, bad objection. I didn't ask about Eagle Grove's opinions. We're talking about future land use, future economic value, and I asked him his opinion as to if he believes his land will be impacted, given that it's prime development land.
I believe that restates the question. The question was about Eagle Grove's development. As restated, we withdraw the objection.
Thank you. Go ahead and answer the question as restated. If you'd like Mr. Jorde to restate it.
I think I need that restated, because I was already forming an answer to your first question, and now I want to understand what the next question is. I'm sorry.
Sure. So one of the questions I believe the board asked you was plans for future development. Right. And would you agree that your plans of future development are at least in part informed by the future development potential vis-a-vis the surrounding areas, such as the largest city in Wright County, which is Eagle Grove?
Objection, Your Honor.
State your objection.
It may have been before Mr. Jorde came in, but this was asked and answered by the chair, and the witness said that they had no plans to do anything else but what they're currently doing with this farmland.
Mr. Jorde?
Yeah, I heard everything that's happened today, and this is different than the question that was asked.
So,
If-
Mr.
if I'm-
Taecker,
if
the
I may try-
attorneys are not supposed to ask you unduly repetitious questions. So if you've already said it, or if it's been in your submitted testimony, hold on, you don't have to answer it again, but you may answer that question if you'd like. Just know that the attorneys aren't supposed to ask you the same questions over and over.
Understand.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the clarification. This is different than a code development hearing, I'll tell you that.
Well.
For construction codes, this is the different types of styles, but it's relatively close. Okay, so just a couple quick things. One is that again, and I have no idea what my daughter would do. I have no idea what my grandson will do. I have no idea my grandson's 6 years old, so I have no idea, especially with him. I know with my daughter, it'll stay the way it is. As far as and stay the way it is, as in being used solely as the farmland and the way it's been used for the last 100+ years. It is true that there is a sliver of, 50 acres or so that are within the city limits. I really wish they weren't, but they are. Why do I wish they weren't? Just because that's just an additional dealing with in regards to how one deals with taxation and all that stuff. But that has nothing to do with the pipeline or the use of the land. There have been in years past, many years past, there were attempts by the city to say, so that I'll have to explain it this way, is that the railway now stops here. It used to go through, and this is the part of the Three Rivers Trail, and that little sliver that bifurcates between this. What I should have noted for you is this is also our land too. So our land is on that side and on that side, and they were wanting to complete the trail all the way down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm a little bit concerned that I'm gonna get you with this pointer. Sorry, but anyway, that they wanted to go further down, and we did not want that because we wanted it to stay as is. We did not want people trespassing through our area. So, to put it pointedly, we don't want there to be any development. I think that's more to your question. Is that do we view it as there would be a housing development or not? Mm-mm. Not on our land. Even the 50 acres is within the city limits. No.
And so when you make that statement and you repeatedly have said to stay the way it is or keep it the way it is, would you agree that having miles of a hazardous CO2 pipeline is not in keeping with your desire to keep the land as it is?
So there are a lot of things that one wishes that they did not have happen. Where my house is that there's springing up around it these high rises that are coming up all around. High rises, multiple stories. I don't want it, but I'm going to do the best I can to mitigate against it. And I can only do so much. And I don't. Some people say it's progress or whatever. Sometimes progress is a good thing, sometimes not. But I think that gets into that. The differences between what I'd like, what I want, and what I'm going to have to live with or what I am going to have to deal with can sometimes be, unfortunately, different things. And in this case, again, like I said, would I like this to not be there? Absolutely. But then again, what else do I have?
Well, I guess that's my question to you, because I'm frankly a bit confused on your testimony. You had said you've flown all the way out here to California because this is important, and it clearly is based on the answers you've given in your testimony. But then on the other hand, it seems like you're saying, well, I guess there's nothing I can do. And 2 times you mentioned political climate and political forces. Is it your view that, I mean, at the end of the day, you're a little person in a big political scheme that seems to want to force this project on you and Iowans?
So, if we had reached like I had said before, we are working to try to minimize our concerns, to have an agreement that we can live with. It doesn't necessarily mean I like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to go through with that. And the only reason I'm here today and we're having all this conversation is simply because we still have the 1 or 2 things more to do. And if we had had some things buttoned up, a couple of things of agreement last Friday, I wouldn't be. The only thing I would be speaking here is saying, we already have an agreement. The reason I put, when you get something like this, you try to figure out, okay, what do I need to have all my options still available to me. That's why I'm here, is all my options. I'm also here because I have a ton of other things. In fact, I will be fairly late to getting together with my family attorneys to deal with several other things that are family business, have nothing to do with the pipeline. So I'm here for other reasons too. It's not just for this, but I did ask, and I was appreciative of I should have said this just to point out that in all of this, the best interaction I had was with the I don't recall what the name of it is, but the people that I talked with that I called on this were some of the most helpful governmental staff I've come across, and I come across a lot. So I asked that because they recognized that I was wanting to be here in person, and they gave me a time certain, which is this morning. So I was surprised at that, frankly. Something weird on record.
Sir, you, in the course of that answer, mentioned the word minimize and mitigate. Are you familiar generally as a professional engineer with the kind of the concept of avoid, minimize, mitigate?
To a fair degree, yes.
And so is it your testimony that you've kind of given up on the concept of avoid in terms of a hazardous pipeline on your property, and you've been working in earnest in what appears to be your point of view, the eventuality of this happening, and so you're focused more on the minimize and mitigate portion of it. Is that fair?
Reasonably fair. When I was noting the owners in the land, one of them that I noted was my sister. My sister's husband is he's He's on the list of the top 2,000 scientists in the world. He is a research scientist. He is a professor. He's been, and let's see, petroleum engineering. But also he studied economics. He couldn't make up his mind in his bachelor's. Anyway, why I say all that is because in all of our conversations that he and I have had, and I had conversations with everybody that I'm trying to hear on all sides, is that it is one of those things where it's unfortunately not. It's one of those things where you have to figure out what you're going to do in regards to how you're going to respond to it. And the part we have to, we understand where things are, but we also have to understand about doing what we can.
It seems kind of like almost a defeatist attitude, though, that I'm getting from you, practical, but kind of like there's no other hope.
Not sure I would necessarily see it as defeatist as much as more as realist.
And does that tie back to the statement you made about you'd rather go through a voluntary, quote unquote, voluntary process rather than having the force of eminent domain upon your 10 parcels?
Well, let's look at the difference between voluntary easement and eminent domain. And voluntary easement, then, is just between my family and our lawyers and Summit Carbon Solution and their lawyers. Whereas in an eminent domain, we're before another body that's going to be deciding the fate for either one of us. So why would I want to put myself in that subjection? Sorry for anybody that I hope I didn't insult any lawyers in what I said, but I mean that's there's a difference in how you can reach certain. You have an opportunity to reach more a point than you do otherwise, and that's why I'm asking for let the course of the discussion work its way out, and not have that eminent domain as something that gets in the way.
If eminent domain was something that this board did not approve on your parcels for whatever reason, or it was a power simply not available, would you be, quote unquote, voluntarily negotiating with Summit if you knew they couldn't force this on you ultimately?
There would be far less interest.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Ms. Coles?
I'm sorry, could I ask a question?
Sure.
You see me as dangerous. My friends have gotten to you. I'm sorry. Could you please state who you represent again?
Yeah, I represent over 150 landowners and farmers that are concerned about eminent domain and opposed to this project generally. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Hello, Mr. Taecker. Jean Colas with Colas Family Farms. I'm also a landowner who's found herself in the same situation as you. And I had a question. You brought up that you had, can you hear me? That you had no choice but to negotiate with Summit because otherwise eminent domain or to reach an easement agreement.
So I'd say
Objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead and state your objection.
A asked and answered to the, I guess, let me flip it around. I'm not sure I heard a question there as opposed to a statement. To the extent that there was a question, it's the same discussion that the witness had with Mr. Jorde.
I think I might be able to just, I don't know if I could.
Just sort of sort it out real quick. Ms. Coles, did you have a question in there?
Well, does he feel that he needed to negotiate with Summit for an easement agreement because the alternative could have been eminent domain against his property?
Okay, and can you clarify how that's different than how it was previously asked?
All right, I'll strike the question. When you were negotiating with Summit regarding an easement agreement, did they at any time give you any information pertaining to the safety or hazards of this pipeline?
There has been in part, but also, as I've indicated before, that of research I've had based on what my profession is and of what and other experts outside of this room that I've talked with.
So Summit did not provide this information directly to you. It was obtained from your own personal investigation.
In regards to very specific safety protocols,
Well, with just the fact that there might be a risk if it was to people or animals, if it was constructed on your property.
information regarding specific risks that I know of and have obtained is from outside conversations.
Did you have numerous contact with Summit in the negotiations with land agents? And about how many times did they contact you or your wife or whatever?
For clarification, from the very beginning of this of the proposal and the petition, or or in regards to this to the eminent domain, in what context?
From beginning to eminent domain.
How many times? My gosh, I don't know if I can count that high. I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. No, I was contacted quite a few times. As to the number of them, I'd have to go back to look to be completely accurate and honest about that. I will say that there were a significant amount at first, and as I had noted at one point in my testimony that my father's health has not been at all good, and that's putting it extremely mildly, and other issues in the family on other different things, that there was a point in time that I basically said, I cannot deal with this at this point in time because of the way things are on other fronts, and at that point, I will say to I would say to Summit Carbon's credit, I'd have to say that they honored that, and they did not. How I want to say it. Did not at all hound me or anything of that nature. If that's what you're getting at.
I'm just wondering about your contact. Also,
if I may say on the contact is that I would characterize there's kind of three instances. The first is that initially, when we all got the letters saying, "Hey, we are going to giving notice so that we can go and do the initial
survey, or I'm sorry if I'm mischaracterizing this. I think I'm about right. And how to phrase that, so just to be clear. I happened to be out here for other purposes last fall. I'm usually out here. I try to be out here every fall. COVID kind of screwed that up, but other than that, so when I was here last fall, is that I spent about 3-4 hours at Summit Carbon Solutions office with all of their top management and including their CEO. So there was a significant amount of discussion there. We had correspondence and a couple of calls in the first part of this year, and then it's been the conversations that have been in the last month or so.
Okay. During those negotiations, obviously with your situation, the payment might have been important. You mentioned that you were still working and had hoped to retire, and you have lovely white silver hair. I was wondering, when you were negotiating, I don't know if this is my business, if the fact that it was a one-time payment versus perhaps broken up because of Social Security benefits, how they're determined, etc., and Medicare and all that, if that would have had a factor in what they were offering in not signing the easement agreement.
So I would say that I don't see my age, my retirement, or anything of that doesn't really have any relevancy to that. If you look at it, I have a 90-year-old mom. I have my sister and her husband, even though he doesn't own, but is affected by it. Is that they're retired. So again, I'm looking at this not just from the elders in the family that are still alive. I'm also looking at those that are the younger, which are my daughter and my grandson. So that's why I'm kind of struggling with how to answer your question. But I don't. What I'm inferring from what your question is, none of that is a factor in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I was relating to the possible tax implications of that.
So I'll simply say is that the financial is absolutely a consideration, but also is what protections there are in place that would be in place to protect family. The big thing, one of the biggest things to us also is the rerouting of that line, because if it was as originally proposed, then what it is it's far more difficult to us. But the fact that this is a way that I can at least get it so that it is not going through the tiling, a significant amount of tilings. So that's another factor. Those three factors.
I have a question. When they surveyed your land, especially and related on the TMZ to the gully area and how deep it was, did they do a geohazard survey on that, or are you aware of any kind of a survey? What was included?
I have not seen any survey reports. You'd have to ask them.
Okay. see. I guess that answers all my questions because the other ones have pretty much been asked. Thank you very much.
Ms. Greenhagen?
Thank you, Your
Hi.
Honor. Mr. Taecker, my name is Chris Grunhagen, and I'm representing the Iowa Farm Bureau in this proceedings. I know you had asked that previously.
Well, it's always helpful to get the context. I'm sorry. I'm going to move this. I'm not, it's no
Move it
offense to
around.
you, sir.
You're good. You're doing fine. Move it around.
I just have a couple of follow-up questions. You mentioned that you have 2 farming partners, and you mentioned Rodney Olson, and I believe he's listed as the farm tenant on these documents. Do you have a second farm tenant for these parcels?
Yes, Dan Flummerfelt is, and so back to that map, if you wanted to see it, or you looked at the tiling map, the partner on what's in the middle farm is Dan, and what is and who the partner is on the bookends, if you will, the 2 others, that would be Rod.
So the Exhibit H's were not correct regarding who the farm tenant was for the Flummerfelt farm.
Could I see what that was, or my point? When I was looking at the screen, what I saw was it as a landowner name. I don't recall seeing a tenant name on there as well. Was there? And what I'm referring to, when you were showing the map of the tiling, of the proposed line, and you had your cursor across, is that there was a little bubble that came up. You recall the question? Yes. So just put it over. I don't care which one you do. Yeah, so in looking at what's up there, I don't see anything that indicates who is living on the land, or who is the tenant on there. All I see is the landowner name.
Could staff bring up the Exhibit H for, I believe it's, as an example, a WR 122? We'll just take a look at that. See where that says Rodney Olson.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is Dan Flummerfelt is the actual farm
No,
tenant.
no. So which WR is this?
122. Which I believe you identified as
Yeah.
being
So 122. That's
farm.
incorrect.
So
Because 122, if I may confirm, 122 is what you what we both identify as the Flummerfelt, right?
That's what I have written down.
That's what I have written down too. I just wanted to confirm. So, and I always have fun trying to read the descriptions here. So just to confirm on the property description, the property legal description, this is south of the railroad tracks, right?
Our engineering staff is indicating yes.
Yes. So then that would be, Rod is not the tenant for that. That would be Flummerfelt.
So the 3 parcels that are identified.
And actually, I'm sorry, because I want to be as complete, because I don't want to have somebody say, oh, you testified incorrectly here, is that Dan is my partner on the farming of the land. It's his parents, Don and Donna Flummerfelt, that are actually the tenants that are living on the farm. Don used to farm it until he retired a while back. So, and then I wrote that, if just for grins here, if you could maybe pull up like 049. So this is for 049. So 049, Rod is not the tenant. Blake Olson is the tenant.
Would you be willing to clarify it for Summit so that they could get those correct? I assume you're negotiating.
Well, and that is part of if you heard my somewhat flippant comment towards lawyers, that I want to get this accurate and correct, so that I don't have to be having that, neither side of us, we don't have to get more lawyers involved to correct something. As one of my colleagues at work would say, is the antiquity of an error is no excuse for its perpetuity. In other words, figure it out if anybody needs, but don't keep on exacerbating a mistake.
And so, do you consider your farm tenants to be the owner of the crops that they're raising?
No.
Do you have a crop share arrangement with them?
I don't know if it's necessarily called a crop share arrangement. It was an arrangement that that was instituted by my grandfather, when he stopped farming back in the 50s, and it was it's a verbal contract. It's not, and there's some documentation here or there, but effectively, we are responsible, and we're the owners. We are responsible for everything that is fixed in place. They are responsible for anything that moves. In other words, I'm not buying another tractor. I'm not buying a tractor for Rod, though he might like it if I did. But then I'm responsible for covering everything that's of the structures, of any land changes of land or whatever. We have an agreement that we split evenly what our crop input, of covering crop input, and then when it gets to harvest, then we split the yield. He markets, for example, Rod markets the way he wants. I market the way I want.
And
Very simple type arrangement.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. You also mentioned the tile map that you had provided copies of. Your Honor, has that been entered as a hearing exhibit? Would you like that to have that entered as a hearing exhibit so that the board can consider it?
Well, it's kind of fun not having my own counsel here, so I'm not sure if does that open me up
You
for
just need
anything
to ask
or
the chair.
whatever. That it's not going to put me in any jeopardy, I'm assuming. So
I haven't seen anyone else not admit it.
perfect. Then I'm still learning how this all plays out. So I don't have any objection to it being done.
You need to make the motion, but it sounds like you're making a motion to admit.
I will make the motion to admit as the map that I provided, with the caveat that you're going to have a little bit of trouble with that clarity in that middle, because this again is a facsimile of a facsimile.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any objections? No objections. Hearing no objections, the board will admit Taecker hearing exhibit 1 and give it the weight due. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Greenhagen.
Thank you all. You also talked about I believe we were talking to Mr. Taylor, that you were wanting a third-party inspector to inspect the tile lines. Do you recall that conversation with him?
I wanted the option that that if there's any area where there's the tiling, that if needed, that we can have a third-party inspector who a tile person who's knowledgeable in regards to tiling, that can come and inspect and make sure that we haven't done that they, in their progress of putting in the pipeline, have not damaged it, or if it's damaged, that it is returned back to it. The tiling is returned back to its original state.
Have you had an opportunity to learn about the county inspectors?
I'm aware of them.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to the Wright County inspector?
No, I have not.
Is that something you would do to help so the inspector will know what your tiles are and can serve as a third-party inspector?
So I'm talking about on top of a county inspector. I'm not talking about, when I'm talking about that third party, I'm not talking of the county inspector. I'm talking of an inspector that is of my choice.
Very good. I appreciate that clarification as well. With the third party inspector, we'll discuss private third party inspector, perhaps.
We have two different ways of thinking about the third party inspection means something very specific in my line of work. So that's why I was using it. Go on.
No, very good. Appreciate that. If the tile line, if your tile system isn't repaired properly, would you expect Summit then to go back in and fix that?
100%.
Even if you didn't discover that a tile line had been cut off and not repaired, and you didn't discover it for 4 or 5 years later?
I am confident that all of our tiling is operating fully and correctly at this time.
But if you learned that it wasn't, if the pipeline was constructed and that some of it wasn't repaired, and you didn't learn about it because maybe we had some dry years, would you expect Summit to come back in and repair it 4 or 5 years later if it wasn't discovered until then?
Well, certainly I'm expecting them to take care of anything that they may have, that they have introduced into the mix. And I'm sure that will be, at that point, that's going to be that conversation that's going to be, as with anything, that there's going to be a conversation between lawyers and to what extent. And also, I'm struggling because that's kind of slightly a what if. But I would, I think that I used these two words before a couple of times, several times, is that I'm expecting good faith. And in that expectation of good faith is partly is that, you know, it's one thing of good intent, and it's also what's in the wording within the actual agreement, because, you know, maybe I won't be around. I have no idea whether, you know, today's a good day. I woke up and I'm still alive. I don't know if I'm going to be tomorrow. So, you know, it might be, so it might be something that my daughter has to deal with, or even my grandson later in life. So it just depends on what's the longevity of the project. The longevity of the pipeline. There's all sorts of different factors. So,
thank you for your time. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Zeman?
Good morning, Mr. Taecker. I'm Randy Zeman from the Office of Consumer Advocate. I wanted to follow up with you on just one area you talked about. I believe you told the board to not allow construction without the other permits, are you getting at that the board shouldn't allow construction until there's permits in other states where this is connecting to?
So I believe the way that I phrased it was that I hope. I think that was the words I used at the start of it, though I'm not going to ask you to go back and find my words because that's already way earlier this morning. I want to make sure that we're not having. I would hope that there's not a, dare I say, a pipeline going to nowhere. If I may be, we have a situation. I'll try to answer it with in a slightly different way here. Is that there was a project that was in the state of California that was for a high-speed rail, and it was a very expensive project, and it was going through farmland, going through the San Joaquin Valley, through the breadbasket for us, and it was going. They had started work in the middle of it, and then realized that they didn't have at all the permits to deal with on either end, and so it was basically as a train going from nowhere to nowhere that was of no use, and then all that effort and such, and it resulted in nothing other than, that was supposed to be for the public good and all that stuff, public necessity, whatever. It was supposed to be all that, and that's why I'm just saying is that I don't want to have. I don't want to be in a situation where, I hope not to be in a situation where there's been a start of a project, and by start of a project I mean as in, actually digging in, and then find that, it's not, we're not going to finish the whole thing, and therefore we're going to abandon it, and it's partially done.
So you would be in favor of them conditioning any permit on having all the permits needed to build the pipeline?
Certainly would be my preference.
Thank you.
Mr. Dublinsky?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a couple of really quick, just clarification questions, Mr. Taecker. The end of your discussion with Mr. Jorde about potential development, you made a comment about, as I recall, about high-rises coming in, and you didn't like. I assume you're referring to California, not Wright County.
Yes. So appreciate, can understand why you asked for that clarification. Yes, I was talking about for my own property of where my primary residence is in San Jose, Campbell area. Yeah, let me try it again. I'm sorry, you're going to have all that. Yeah. I'm in Campbell, but I'm actually, my address is Campbell, but I pay my taxes to the city of San Jose. It's a community in that regards. And there are starting to become some buildings around, and it's certainly, some might say I'm being a NIMBY and not in my backyard, but, and do I like it? No. Do I want them far away from me? Yes. Do I want them not to do it? Yes. But, I also need to be thinking, dare I say, at the same time, in my mind, I need to be thinking pragmatically. How do I, if you're going to go through with this, I want to make sure that you're not having construction hours, starting at 6 a.m. I want to make sure that that you're not driving trucks down the middle of down my street at too early or whatever. There's mitigations, and then because it will, ultimately, just as it is there, just as it is here, certainly it'll affect it can affect the value of my property. It can affect our quality of living. It can affect a number of factors. So what do you do to minimize, mitigate?
And the other one, you mentioned a couple of times on the small pop-up box over the red parcels on the KMZ map about the ownership information being incorrect in what shows in that little pop-up box. Are you aware that more extensive ownership information is shown on the formal, what's called the Exhibit H exhibit that's filed with the board.
So it took me a moment to. So I lost part of your conversation because I was trying to figure out what the pop-up was. Because you used a slight term that got my brain going in another way. So I thought you were talking about something that was actually a construction on the map, not an informational bubble on the map.
And
I got you now.
Okay.
I got you now. So so now that I understand what context we're talking about. Could you, what you're asking me is in regards to how I view what is in the Exhibit H? Like if we could throw one of those examples up, I don't care which one, you know, dealer's choice, whatever staff is able to grab. Because I think that's the question you have is in regards to that, correct?
Right.
So your question is in regards to,
question,
we can use any example you wish.
Sure. The question is, are you aware, you were expressing concern about the information in the box that pops up when you hover over the map. And my question was, are you aware that there is more extensive ownership information on the Exhibit H than shows in that small little pop-up box?
So if you could scroll this down, please.
Scroll up, I believe.
Or scroll up, I think. So this is 049. This is, so this says ownership information, and it shows, that the ownership information, and when I say my father, that's Roy Thomas Taecker Jr. When I say my mother, that is Mildred Taecker. That the ownership information is not quite correct. And I will say this, is that just because I'm one of the owners, my name is sort of there, and it says that on the third one, it says Roy Thomas Taecker Jr. as co-trustee of John's Trust created under the Clara H. Brown Trust. My father is not the trustee. I'm the co-trustee to start with for that trust. That was changed a while back, but that's before my dad started to decline. So that is incorrect to start with. The second thing is, if you look at the deeds, the actual deeds on the land, what you'll find is my name and my mother's name. You'll never find my dad's name.
And do you know if this information is the same as the information on the county's Beacon website?
That is not in county records, at least from what. No, you say Beacon. I know of what you speak, and I have not gone specifically there, but I can tell you what it shows on the property tax that I get to pay every 6 months, and that information is not that way.
And
so those are not. They're not aligned. They're not correct. Now, is this something that is correctable? Yes, but that's what I want the time and make sure that this is completely accurate for good reasons, for both, frankly, it's in both interests.
Certainly. And my understanding is that the conversations between your attorneys and Summit's attorneys are that there has been some changes in trustees that are not yet in the public record. Is that your understanding?
That's not correct. Those that has been long ago. No. I can't tell you when the time frame of when you grabbed my parents and myself were making changes. I can't tell you exactly what came first or what came second because I don't know when you pulled. Okay. And I don't. But I can tell you that what is shown on the screen right now is not accurate as of today,
But and that's, I believe you testified earlier, that's something that your attorneys and Summit's attorneys are working out as part of the negotiations, correct?
My attorney has all of the trustee information and such, and that is part of that conversation. Correct.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Don't believe there are any questions from the board. So, Mr. Taecker, we appreciate you traveling out here and providing your testimony. We wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 15-minute break off the record, and we will come right back to Marta Berggren.